What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be talking about The Pod Generation. Written and directed by Sophie Barthes, this film stars people like Emilia, Clarke, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Vinette Robinson, Rosalie Craig, and many more. So before we get too far into this, I'd like to say a big thanks to those kind folks over at Vertical Entertainment for sending me over another early screener for one of their movies. Now, I had the chance to upload a review for this earlier in the week. It's currently Thursday, the day that this film actually starts to have theatrical screenings. I'm actually going later tonight to go watch a screening of The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and saw that at my local theater that I go to, they had a screening of this film, The Pod Generation, that's actually sold out. And that kind of prompted my interest to go and see this movie even more. I had it sitting in my email, and I just didn't have the best time management this week. And this is also one of those movies that I wish I had seen earlier in the week to give myself a little bit of time to have it digest before filming a review. But I have a lot of videos to make. I have a lot of things in the pipeline right now, so I wanted to get my thoughts out on this, and it's going to be pretty raw. I just saw the movie 10 or 15 minutes ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my head, and I think there's a lot about this movie that still needs to sit with me in a lot of ways, and I think that that's how a lot of people are going to feel with this movie. This is an interesting one that stars Emilia Clarke and Chiwetel Ejiofor as a couple. You have Emilia Clarke, who is a businesswoman. She works for some sort of tech company, and she's very, very prolific in that world. She's very, very intelligent. She's knowledgeable in that world, and she's looked at highly by her peers. Her husband, on the other hand, is a botanist, and in this world that we're in The Pod Generation, we're in the 22nd century, and pretty much anything that has to do with nature has been completely thrown to the wayside. We live in a world now where technology completely engulfs us, which is not entirely different from where we currently are. In a lot of ways, this is a cautionary tale of the future, showing us a future where we have humans entirely reliant on everything technological, AI, whether it be down to them making our food or them to letting us know what the different chemical levels are in our body, like serotonin and dopamine, and sometimes even suggesting that we do something like a nature pod in order to get a little bit of time with fake nature to make us feel a little bit better. It's a world where you have hologram trees, and it's a world where at this point they've decided to kind of move away from anything natural. And that leads us into the main thing that this film is about, where you have Emilia Clarke's character wanting to have a child, but her husband, who's a botanist and is in love with the world of nature and in love with plants, wants to have a normal pregnancy, but she wants to do something that people do in this world, which is have a pod child, have a child in a pod that essentially looks like a little egg, where you have the kid incubated within it, and you end up having a baby one day, and you have to take care of this egg. And this movie at its core is about the disconnection that we as humanity have had as the world consistently progresses. It's an interesting kind of idea that this movie tackles, is the idea of progress always being kind of looked at as a good thing, versus recognizing a lot of times that some of these advancements have created more avenues for people to disconnect from real life and disconnect socially from people all around them. And that's something we see in the world today. Me, myself, in the last few years, I find myself more and more itching to exercise and go out and be in the sunlight and spend more time outside. And a lot of times I don't. I get caught up in work. I get caught up in doing YouTube. I get caught up in watching movies. I get caught up in playing video games. I get caught up swiping on my phone. And when I do go and do those things, I feel substantially better. When I was younger, I had a nice balance of being able to go outside and have a good time, because I grew up in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And while there was a lot of technology and I'd come inside and play video games and stuff, it wasn't where it is today. And I feel like we're just now in this time where we just mindlessly scroll. There's the classic doom scrolling, as people call it, where you're just on your phone. And this film just really tackles the progression of that same idea. Now, of course, this is a sci-fi film that's giving us a bit of a cautionary tale future, but more than anything is really showcasing the idea of us moving away from nature, us moving away from the natural for the artificial, whether it be artificial intelligence for, just living our lives, making food, even art, as we see that is a current thing here in this current world. And I think that this film has a lot of really interesting commentary on that. There are some moments throughout the course of the film that I think may rub some people the wrong way, as it is touching on some modern day politics and things that are going on, some current events. I mentioned AI as one of them. You do have a lot of things going on here where you have a moment where you have kids actually in an art class that is just them watching a computer create art and then they're giving it feedback versus them actually doing the art themselves, and the kids are just sitting there looking bored and mindless. You also have a lot of commentary because this whole movie is about these two people having an artificial child. You have this whole movie that's focused on motherhood and the control of women's reproductive systems, and it's an interesting thing because even the women who are in this world who can't afford to get one of these pod children, who have to do the natural way, you have them looking to the people who get to do it via this womb center, this artificial way of building a child. You have those people kind of envying the people who have the ability to have the pod. But then on the flip side, in this film, Emilia Clarke's character, who really wanted to have the pod child, is now with this pod child and comes across women who are actually pregnant and starts to wonder if she made the wrong choice. I won't get too much deeper into what this movie's all about and the twists and turns and different things like that, because it's a movie I think you need to see and just kind of see how it unfolds. It's not something I want to sit here and spoil for you. But what I can say is I think for the most part, this is a really solid watch with an interesting story that kept me engaged throughout with really engaging performances. Where this film did lose me at times is that I found it to be a little bit overly long for what it is. There were some sequences that felt like they could have been cut that didn't really feel like they added a whole lot to the movie. There are some moments that are a little bit bizarre and strange. You can definitely tell they're going for a bit of an offbeat tone here that sometimes maybe undercuts some of the messaging of the overall film. But for the most part, I found this to be an impactful watch. I do think that this is something that's going to maybe rub some people the wrong way. There's a lot of what's going on here on the cautionary tale side of things that of course is opinion based, and I think like anything else, there's going to be a lot of people on the opposite side of those opinions that might disagree with how this film depicts certain things. But for me, I do think that it had a lot of really valid commentary on where society is going moving forward. I thought the performances were solid, and while I found it a little bit slow at times and I found that certain things were kind of on the nose in terms of how they depicted it, for the most part I think it's a solid watch that you guys should definitely check out, and it is definitely just worth watching for the main 2 stars alone. Emilia Clarke and Chiwetel Ejiofor are really interesting characters here because there's times of the film you really like them, and there's times of the film maybe where you don't like them, and then there's times where you don't really know how to feel about them, as their whole journey throughout the course of the film is changing consistently as they are having to deal with this pod. One of them may be against it at a certain point, one of them might be in love with the idea of it at another point, and then kind of vice versa. And it kind of just goes to show how raising a kid and having to take care of the pregnancy phase of having a child can be a lot more than certain people expect.
What brings you all here today?
We're having a hard time finding our balance as a family. Like, everything seems to be revolving around Pod.
The baby. Baby, I'm sorry. I don't see a pod. I see a baby.
Everyone in the family needs to make adjustments to welcome this new addition. Your family dynamics are about to undergo tremendous changes, and these changes directly affect you.
Me and my fiance personally don't want kids. It's just not something that calls to us. It's not something that we've ever wanted to do. And as the years have gone on, we've talked about it, but it's just not something we want to do. And I think while there are a lot of incredible parents out there in this world, whether they plan for the kid or not, I think we can all recognize that we know plenty of people in our lives who chose to have a child because it was more of a novelty. They saw babies online, they got baby fever, and they ended up going out there, getting themselves pregnant, starting a family, and a lot of times end up being not so great parents, or you can just tell that they don't really have what it takes to raise the kid, or they don't put any effort into raising the kid. They slap something in front of them, an iPad, an app, some TV shows, and just let that raise the kid, which is an interesting part of this film as well, because the pod that they're raising the child in literally has an accompanying app that they can feed and give them different flavors. While they're inside the pod, they can play music for them and podcast and different things like that. And so this film definitely has a lot of commentary when it comes to a lot of parents that just put some sort of technology in front of their kid and raise them that way, and don't really put a lot of effort into actually raising them themselves. I think that this film has some really good commentary when it comes to the current state of the world, and a obviously fictionalized version of where it could head if certain things are left unchecked. So that's going to be my thoughts on the Pod Generation. Definitely a movie I recommend. I think if you're into this, if it sounds like something that's up your alley, definitely check it out. I think it's a movie that as I sit with it for a few more days after this review, certain opinions here might change slightly, but for the most part, I found it to be interesting, engaging, a little bit slow, a little bit boring at times, and some things are a little bit too on the nose, but ultimately an interesting watch that I think is worth watching at least one time. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Leave any and all comments down below. Have you seen this movie? Have you not seen this movie? Are you planning to see this movie? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.